Not bad.
Yeah, come on.
That's not bad. It's really close. Just gotta get the words to match up with the piano.
Don't smile tonight, gotta wipe my frown, dry my eye. 'Cause this is how it is when you're older. Wake up and you're bipolar.
Yeah. I've been on bipolar medication for most of my adult life. And I'd have to reference my journal entries at the time, but I think I went off medication either right before COVID hit or right after it hit. And I decided to stay off medication because when we weren't in the office, I didn't have distractions to trigger any mood swings. And then through a few months, more like probably half a year, I really started being more self-aware because I was alone with my own thoughts. And I started looking at my symptoms and I'm like, that's definitely more autism. And I still think, maybe I have bipolar disorder, but I think I'm on the autism spectrum. I've said that before. Mainly because, I mean, the music's shit. Like, it's not that I'm a professional, but it's really, really easy, and I haven't put that much time into it. Also, the noise sensitivity. A lot more traits of autism, I feel. But I certainly wouldn't rule out me being bipolar. Because after being on medication for so long, I think I started taking lithium and trial and erroring with several other bipolar medication when I started kind of messing with it late in high school, early in college. Though I believe the diagnosis was, I went to several psychiatrists. I had a diagnosis of autism first, and then the type 2 bipolar came in later. But after being on that medication, because there are side effects of medication, and that's sometimes they outweigh the benefits. When COVID hit, I was like, man, this is great. And I was getting more work from my manager, which I was making $80K a year. And though I didn't like getting an increased workload, I'm like, well, shit, some people are losing their homes and jobs. I'll suck it up. But in order to perform at the level and use my brain at a high level to keep up with that workload, I had to stay off the medication, even when I felt like I might have needed it. One of the advantages of bipolar and probably autism is creativity. Oftentimes exceptional leadership under pressure. And so I figured it was an advantage. I'd use the disorder to my advantage and combat the weaknesses of whatever disorder I have. And then I became so addicted to not being on medication that now I'm just like, shit, I don't ever want to go back, which is dangerous. Because I forgot to mention this. I've always taken Adderall or Ritalin or Cotempla in my day as some type of stimulant to offset the drowsiness, because I was on like 1,500 milligrams of lithium for most of my adult life, and that's a lot. And it makes you like a zombie. And so I was using stimulants to combat that. And then when I really got on to a big workload, because at first when I went off my bipolar medication to start COVID, I didn't take as much Adderall because I didn't need it. I was awake without all that medication. It made me tired, so I took probably 30 milligrams at most. And then the workload kept getting more and more, and I'm like, man, I love my house. I had a brand new house, and I love my dog and my ex-girlfriend at the time. And so I'm like, I need to take as much Adderall as I was taking, and I should have been more upfront with my psychiatrist, but I'm only human, and it's not his fault. But I started taking up to 60 milligrams of Adderall on weekdays, and on weekends I would dose down because I wasn't working as much. And then I kind of became addicted, or at least heavily dependent on Adderall. And then I got lucky with a leave of absence. Otherwise, I'm probably going to a psychiatric ward temporarily to get help. And during lockdown, I had enough competitive nature in me to not go to the hospital because I had a leave of absence against Walmart, and everyone knows what they do. And me having bipolar, autism, or both, it doesn't change the reality. The reality is some people live happily without medication and have bipolar. It's not common that someone is able to live a fulfilling, normal life without medication who has bipolar, and I don't recommend it. But under the right circumstances, it is certainly possible. But I didn't want to go get mental health help, but I had some major problems from the Adderall and from COVID. We all did. And I felt if I went to the hospital or admitted myself to an addiction facility, that would void my potential lawsuit or claims against Walmart, because I know how corporate America, especially Walmart, works. They're evil. They would say, oh, well, look, it's an existing mental health disorder, so that invalidates every claim Dayton Carr makes. And I'm like, that's not how you morons, that's not how life works. Someone having a disease, because that's what bipolar is, that's what autism is. They're diseases, similar to, forms of cancer or an STD is a disease. It's just a different type of disease. It's a mental health disease. And so I don't feel guilty about that, but I knew how Walmart's lawyers and how Walmart, those snakes, would play it. They would, oh, are you feeling okay? Are you feeling good? Yeah. It's not that I don't understand reality or that I'm crazy. And I'm considering going back on medication because in case I do have bipolar disorder, I've had a lot of trouble sleeping lately. And I've got the YouTube channel built now to where I don't need as much creativity and energy to get it off the ground. And I'd like to start dating again, and it would be hard for me to enter into a relationship with a nice girl because it's not fair to her. Especially if I have, again, bipolar disorder. That's tough to manage. and be around someone. I've isolated myself for a very long time now, partially because of the pandemic, but also because once you reach a certain point of stress, and especially understanding my brain chemistry, it's not a good idea to be around people. But I kind of became addicted to being able to use my brain at a high level during COVID and being off the medication. And I think that's something a lot of people that have bipolar disorder or other mental health diseases. I don't know if autism is really medicated as much as bipolar. I think autism is kind of a challenge to medicate. It's more just you got to be really routine focused and exercise well and do a lot of things for yourself. But I don't know if there's like a set medication that works for autism every time, like lithium kind of does with bipolar. But I'm probably going to end up going back on medication. I'm actually planning to play in a chess tournament in Denver. I saw on LinkedIn it's to support Chess Kid, and one of the better chess athletes who has some form of disability, I believe, started it to support people with disabilities through chess, and that's great. And so I'm going to go to Denver and play in that, and then after that I'm probably going to go to a facility to get a proper diagnosis, because when I was young and I had the mixed diagnoses of autism and type 2 bipolar, there were so many variables. As a young kid, I use social media a lot. There's a lot of stress of just growing up in college and figuring out life. But now that I'm older and I kind of know how to cope and I'm more self-aware of what I'm feeling, maybe I can get a proper diagnosis and maybe I do need to be on medication. But I'd like to reiterate this point before I close. It doesn't mean that I'm crazy. I drink like a little bit. I just finished my Captain Morgan, but it's not like I would never drive if I've had a sip, but I wouldn't blow over the legal limit or anything. I don't drink much at all. I don't do any drugs. I exercise pretty regularly. So it's not like most people that have bipolar disorder, it's not like I'm just insane or dangerous or beating women or couldn't hold down a job under normal times. It'd be harder with the pandemic and all the ripple effects on mental health. Usually, I wrote a LinkedIn article about it. The people who you hear about that are stalkers or rapists or murderers, every time there was a disease like bipolar disorder, autism, maybe dyslexia, but it was amplified by a terrible event, usually early on in one's childhood, molested, beaten by a stepdad or something. And then it triggered a mental illness in a negative way. That's one of the reasons I'm very passionate about mental health, is because through no choice of my own, I happen to have good parents. My parents are still together and they're very supportive, except for the YouTube channel. They don't really love some of the things I say. But had I had my brain chemistry and grown up in a house that there were gunshots being fired in my window and my mom was doing drugs and my parents weren't together, I'm probably in prison, or I've hurt myself or someone else, unless I would have found a mentor early in my life to get me mental health treatment and teach me right from wrong. Otherwise, yeah, that's the only reason that I do a YouTube channel, and I got a good corporate job out of college, and I had money saved, and I'm in a position to have healthy relationships and hopefully help people. That's the only reason, is because I had a family that got me opportunities to get help when I needed it. I don't know if that's selfish or if I feel guilty, because a lot of people with just as much or more talent than me are in prison for life because they didn't understand mental health, or they bought into someone's narrative of, oh, you have mood swings, so there's something wrong with you, or you're possessed by the devil. And at a young age, I was treated like that on occasion. Fortunately, I had family who was middle class to support me and help me feel better. And pay for psychiatrists and psychologists to teach me, Dayton, you're not possessed by the devil. Here's what's chemically happening in your brain, most likely, that's making you feel this way. Let's work on controlling it. But most people don't have that. And so if a guy at age 17 or 18 doesn't get diagnosed with bipolar and is told, hey, you're possessed by the devil, there's something wrong with you, you start to believe that, and it kills your confidence. You don't treat people right. You're abusive to women because you're told you're a monster and you start to believe it. And that's what my LinkedIn article was about, is give a dog a bad name and you might as well hang him. And I'm probably a little bit more anti-medication than most people who have struggled with mental health or even mental health professionals, but I think the human brain is a very incredible thing. And a lot of mental health illnesses, it's not like I don't think they're diseases or that they have their downsides, but some of it, I mean, I'll assume bipolar, though. Again, I think I definitely have autism, but I want to get a reassessment. Type 1 bipolar, I would even say it would be hard for me to not advocate medicating one who has type 1 bipolar. That's the most severe, I believe. But type 2, which is what, if I have it, that's what I've been diagnosed with in the past. I don't know that in all cases I would want to medicate that, because there are so many good things. My ability to focus under pressure. I believe Chris, I don't want to mispronounce his last name, Chris Calico. I mean, he's worth a lot of money. He's helped a lot of people through his music. He has bipolar disorder. Tech Nine, I believe, has bipolar disorder as well. Many artists. I've heard Justin Bieber, although I haven't watched, I don't know if Justin Bieber's confirmed that, has bipolar disorder. And I think the human brain is incredible. If we leave it alone, we don't fill it with garbage, scary movies and false information from Facebook. And also, not to be reverse sexist, but I think women can have, obviously, are just as prone, I would think, to bipolar disorder as men, but more men seem to become violent as a result of having it. But I think one of the hard things for me that, at least in my younger years, might have helped is a lot of women say, oh, we want to support mental health, and we want guys who are open and honest about their mental health. Before it turns violent, someone kind, someone brave enough to break the mental health stigma. But oftentimes, when a younger girls are more mature at my age, I'm 27, they'll see a guy who talks about mental health and does all the things they say they like, but it scares them. Hashtag mental health matters. Yeah, we want guys who talk about mental health. But then you go to a bar, probably more for college people, you go to a bar and someone who's a jerk and who's violent, who fights, who doesn't show up to class, who is wasting his parents' money, partying through college and is going to be a dropout, which is nothing wrong with dropouts. You're going to go give him sex without making him treat you with respect or pay for drinks or putting in the work. But he is doing all the things that you're basically rewarding bad behavior. He needs help. He's just not man enough to admit that he needs help. That's why he's treating girls poorly. That's why he's abusive, verbally, physically, whatever. But you're giving him what he wants. And then when you get someone that's kind or brave enough to be open and honest about our feelings, because everyone's human, oftentimes, and it's logical, girls will want to make someone like that wait, because guys are like that. If you just give us what we want, we're not going to value you as much. And it's stupid that we're like that. But it's also stupid to go through life and reward bad behavior and punish good. And I felt like that before, especially when I was younger. It's like, okay, girls who say they support mental health and guys who speak out about it have been the most scared when they hear me speak about it. And so then it makes me want to go crawl in a hole and never speak about it. If you're going to go date the guys who pretend like they have it all together and then end up losing control, they're the ones that need help. And I'm getting help and I'm doing the right things and I get punished. That's not a thought I have as much now that I'm older. and girls are older. I mean, everyone matures with age, but especially with the mental health crisis for our younger people right now, that's very important. And I think women play a big role because if guys feel the need to be violent or go get you drunk at a bar to feel manly, then they're going to do that, and they're not going to get the help they need because, like I felt in the past, it's like I'm weak for doing the things that women and society say they respect, and that's one of the biggest challenges to overcome the mental health stigma, is actually through your actions, not just our words, supporting people who do it and not taking away our opportunities. It works the same way in business. Supporting an associate or employee who reports a mental illness does not mean he or she is dumb or deserves, or you need to make it easier. No, sometimes I like a challenge, and keeping busy helps me stay in good mental health and have a sense of self-worth if I have more work. So that's one of the reasons I didn't ever tell my manager or leadership at Walmart that I've had a history of mental health challenges, because I know how they work. Even with good intentions, they're probably going to be overly conservative, and with bad intentions, anything I say, they can negate and blame on mental health, and that's cruel. So people don't talk about it, but it's important. I think employers should know, in most cases, if a worker has autism, has schizophrenia, something like that, and that's important. But it's important for the employers to still treat them as equal, and that was my fear. And that is still my fear if I ever had to go to another boss. Let's practice what we preach when it comes to mental health. It might be uncomfortable at first, but at least practicing what we preach and supporting people who speak about mental health will reduce the risk of violence and mass shootings going forward.